The palace doors have not officially confirmed anything, yet whispers are already shaking the foundations of the monarchy tonight. According to senior royal insiders, something unprecedented has unfolded behind closed doors at Windsor, involving Prince William, Princess and a decision that some are calling the most emotionally charged royal move in years. It began quietly, as most royal storms do. A private meeting was scheduled under the guise of routine family consultations. Nothing unusual on paper. But what followed, according to those close to the situation, has now sent shockwaves through every layer of the royal household. Princess and, known for her discipline, her unshakable loyalty to duty, and her rare but powerful influence within the family, is said to have taken a decisive role in supporting Prince William during what insiders are describing as a deeply personal moment tied to the legacy of Princess Diana. For years, William has carefully balanced his public duty with the private weight of his mother's memory. Diana's legacy has always hovered over the monarchy like both a blessing and a wound, celebrated by the public, but quietly sensitive within palace walls. Tonight, however, that balance appears to have shifted in a way no one expected. Sources claim that William arrived at Windsor earlier than scheduled, noticeably tense, accompanied not by aides but by a small, tightly controlled security detail. There was no public announcement, no press briefing, and no indication that anything significant was about to happen. Yet Princess Anne was already there waiting, having reportedly requested the meeting herself just hours earlier. What makes this encounter so striking is not just the people involved, but the tone described by those who claim to have indirect knowledge of the discussions. One insider allegedly said the atmosphere was not hostile, but heavy, like history was being rewritten in real time. Another described it as a moment where emotion and duty collided in a way the palace hasn't seen since Diana's era. At the center of it all, according to these accounts, was a renewed effort by William to redefine how his mother is publicly honored within royal tradition. For years, tributes to Princess Diana have existed in various forms: charity work, memorial funds, and private remembrance. But what was discussed tonight allegedly went far beyond symbolic gestures. Princess Anne's involvement is what has stunned observers the most. Known for her strict adherence to royal protocol and her preference for avoiding emotional spectacle, she is said to have taken an unusually supportive stance toward William's vision. Those familiar with royal dynamics suggest that Anne has always maintained a quiet respect for Diana's place in history, despite the complex personal and institutional tensions of the past. In this reported meeting, Anne is believed to have acted not as a passive listener, but as a stabilizing force, someone willing to bridge the gap between memory and monarchy. One source described her role as the only voice in the room capable of grounding William while also giving weight to what he was trying to accomplish. And what he was trying to accomplish, according to insiders, was not simply remembrance. It was recognition. The conversation allegedly focused on reshaping a key aspect of how Diana's legacy is integrated into future royal initiatives, potentially elevating her humanitarian work into a more permanent and structurally visible part of the monarchy's public identity. While details remain tightly guarded, the implications alone have already sparked intense discussion behind palace walls. But where there is change, there is always resistance. Queen Camilla, who is not present at the meeting, is said to have been informed shortly afterward. And this is where tensions reportedly escalated. Palace aides described the atmosphere that followed as icy and emotionally charged, with Camilla said to be deeply unsettled by the direction of the discussion and the speed at which decisions appeared to be forming without her direct involvement. It is important to note that no official statement has been released, and none of these details have been confirmed by Buckingham Palace. However, the intensity of the internal reaction, combined with the unusually coordinated movements of senior royals on the same day, has fueled speculation that something significant is indeed underway. What has particularly captured public attention is the framing of this moment as a form of symbolic justice for Princess Diana. Supporters of William have long argued that his mother's legacy deserves more prominent institutional recognition, not just emotional remembrance. Tonight's events, as described by insiders, appear to suggest that William is now in a position to influence that direction more directly than ever before. Princess Anne's reported backing only strengthens that perception. Her reputation for pragmatism and influence within royal strategy circles means her support is not seen as emotional, but calculated. If she has indeed aligned herself with William on this matter, it signals a shift that goes beyond family sentiment and into the realm of institutional change. Meanwhile, concern is growing among traditionalist advisors who fear that revisiting past tensions could reopen wounds the monarchy has spent decades trying to quietly close. For them, Diana remains a respected but sensitive figure, honored publicly, but carefully separated from internal restructuring discussions. Yet, tonight feels different, according to those observing from within palace corridors. One aide described it as the moment the past stopped being just history and started becoming an active force again. Outside the palace, public reaction is already beginning to build. Social media platforms have lit up with renewed debate about Diana's legacy, William's role as her son, and Camilla's position within the modern monarchy. While much of the information remains unverified, the emotional weight of the story is undeniable. If these reports hold any truth, then what unfolded behind closed doors at Windsor is not just another royal disagreement. It may represent a turning point in how the monarchy chooses to define its past, its present, and its future. And at the center of it all stands a triangle of legacy, duty, and memory: William, Princess Anne, and the enduring shadow of Princess Diana, now pulling the royal family into one of its most sensitive moments in years. For now, Buckingham Palace remains silent. But silence, in moments like this, rarely lasts long. As dawn begins to edge over Windsor, the palace corridors remain unusually still, as if the building itself is holding its breath. No official confirmation has come, yet the ripple effects of last night's private gathering continue to spread through every level of royal staff, from senior advisors to long-serving household members who have seen decades of internal change. Prince William is said to have left the meeting with Princess Anne in a composed but visibly distant mood, offering no remarks to aides waiting outside. Those familiar with his behavior in moments of high emotional weight describe it as a familiar silence, controlled on the surface, but carrying the pressure of something far larger underneath. Princess Anne, meanwhile, is reported to have returned to her duties without deviation, attending scheduled obligations with her usual precision. But insiders suggest her role in the unfolding situation is far from over. Her involvement, though quiet, is being interpreted within palace circles as a signal that this is not an isolated moment, but the beginning of a longer institutional shift tied to legacy, memory, and royal identity. Queen Camilla's reaction, however, remains the most closely watched aspect of the aftermath. While no public response has been made, those within her immediate circle describe a deeply unsettled atmosphere, marked by frustration over being excluded from a discussion of such symbolic weight. The emotional strain, according to insiders, is not about public perception alone, but about the internal balance of influence within the monarchy itself. And yet, despite all the tension, there is no official crisis declared, no formal dispute acknowledged, and no break in protocol. The monarchy, as always, remains composed on the surface, polished, silent, and impenetrable to the outside world. But behind that silence, something irreversible may already be taking shape. Because what began as a private conversation in Windsor is now being interpreted not as conflict, but as recalibration, a rethinking of how history is honored, who gets to shape it, and how far the legacy of Princess Diana continues to influence the future of the crown. And for the first time in a long while, the question echoing through the palace is not what was said, but what happens next.